I recently had a client tell me that he's cashing out his 401k to invest it in his business to make it progress further than it already is. He posited that I was one of the very few people who would consider that a rational thing to do. He's right, and by the end of this video, you'll know why. If this is the first time joining me, my name is Gene Ligman. I started up and I own and I operate an independent engineering company named Suntour Incorporated. Up until this time, I have primarily made videos on the topic of freeze drying, commercial and personal freeze drying. And I will continue to do that, but I am also going to start a new topic, a new playlist that is all about business. It's going to be a series that focuses on some of the deeper issues that we face. The challenges, the rewards, the anguish, the joy, the road to loss, and the keys to victory. So today's topic is, why start a business at all? It's the American dream, right? So if there's a constant in American culture, it's the pursuit of the American dream. Now, the American dream isn't about working long hours and saving your money. That's good, but it's not the American dream. It isn't about getting that promotion. Again, good, not the American dream. It isn't about being elected to office. It's not even about winning the lottery, although I'm sure many people dream about that. No, it's about starting up, running, and succeeding at a business. That's the American dream. Fame only comes to those who are in business for themselves. Fortune only comes to those who are in business for themselves, whether that be an artist, an athlete, a writer, an executive, an entrepreneur. All those things are people who are in business for themselves. Yes, you may not think artists are in business for themselves, but they are. They create all their own product and they have to sell it. Athletes are in the business of performing. They're a business unto themselves. Me, about 10 years ago, I started my first business. It was a hobby business, making kitchen knives and tools and garden tools and selling them at the local farmers market in Vancouver, Washington. And that's a lovely market. If you're ever in Vancouver, Washington on the weekends, just downtown, I highly encourage you to stop by. The whole experience was glorious. It was the comradeship of the vendors, the curiosity, the friendliness of the customers, the joy of seeing someone value work made by my own hand, valued highly enough to put their cash down on the table for what I made. I tell you, there is a grand feeling that comes from that. If you haven't felt it, you should definitely try it, even if on a small scale. It was exhilarating and joyful and enriching. Yes, enriching. So what were the riches that I reaped? Well, confidence, agency. Every weekend was a success because of the work that I had done in the garage by my own hand. Every sale was a confirmation that I am potent and that I make stuff of high value. Every conversation I had with customers and fellow vendors was like food to the soul. And that bolstered my confidence. That made me feel like I had real effect, not just on myself, but on the world. I also gained business knowledge. I probably learned more about the different facets of running a business, about business itself in those 4 years of selling product at the farmer's market than in all the time that I had been selling industrial equipment. In fact, my equipment sales career rose to a whole new level because of what I learned at the farmer's market. What was it that I learned? Well, in a nutshell, it was I better understood what the challenges and the choices that business owners had to make on a daily basis. And that's one of the key successes to selling in a B2B type environment is you have to know what it is that your customer values. Another thing that I got from selling at the farmer's market was financial security. Over the 4 years, I made and sold about $30,000 worth of kitchen knives and tools and garden tools. Now, that may sound like a lot, and I guess it is for a hobby business, right? It was just done in my spare time. But if I were doing it full time, $7,500 a year is like less than poverty, right? So how did selling these tools at the farmer's market give me financial security? Well, let me tell you a story. Hey, look, before we go on, hit the pause button in a minute here and give me a like and a subscribe. I'm just a regular guy. Started up a business, gonna try to share my knowledge, maybe help you run your business, or maybe even just keep you inspired to run your own business. So, if you appreciate what I'm doing here, yeah, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks. There's this lady named Kathy Johnson. Kathy and Jay Johnson. They were fellow vendors at the Vancouver Farmers Market. And they were selling handmade soap, goat's milk soap. And they had been in business for a number of years by the time I met them. And they had transitioned from their jobs to making and selling soap, handmade soap, full time. Now, this wasn't a trivial thing to do, right? They weren't just a couple, right? They had 9 or more children. I can't remember exactly how many they had, but they had a big family to support. Lovely folks, the whole family. So one week in a lull between customer rushes, I asked Kathy a question that had been sort of consuming my thoughts at the time because I was in this process of starting this little business, right? I said, was it hard to take that risk to quit your job and do this full time? You've got kids to feed. I'll never forget her answer. It was a truly surprising answer. She said, no, actually, it's less risky to own a business. And before I could object, she clarified. She said, I'll never lay myself off. Think about that. Right, so it was, 2011, something like that. And the Great Recession, where so many people lost their jobs, was, really still fresh on people's mind. Yeah, she said, I'll never lay myself off. I mean, think about it. The pay cut that people take when they go from a paycheck to unemployment is a pretty hefty cut, right? Your pay is getting cut in half or more. But if business turns down a little bit, it's not going to turn down that much. I'm still going to sell, most of my soap. It's maybe I'll take a 10, 15, maybe even at the worst 20% hit to my sales because people still need and buy my stuff. And after those few months that you're on unemployment, that goes away. So now you've gone from having a paycheck to zero. That is devastating. So no, our family is much more secure than if we were both working for some company. So now, years later, I'm running my own business again. Right, now it's Suntour Incorporated. Now, I understand that the risk that we all obsess about right? This risk of quitting our jobs and losing our health insurance and whatever other benefits, our 401k, they're really a paper tiger, right? The amount that you leave on the table in order to get that little bit of security is a devastating cost if you really understand it. And furthermore, when we're in control of our own success rather than some manager, we become much more resilient. We become more resourceful, more independent, more secure. So retirement plans are nice. 401ks are a great nest egg. And, and you must have some kind of reserves to fall back on in the case of catastrophe. Be that personal catastrophe like a family crisis, maybe a death in the family or a serious illness or injury. Or it could be an environmental catastrophe. Tornado, hurricane, flood, fire. But do they make us more secure? These retirement funds, the 401ks, the insurance plans? Well, yes, but at the risk of greater security. That security that we would get from running our own business, being in control of our own employment. Do they make us wealthy? No, retirement funds do not make us wealthy. But running a successful business, now that can make you wealthy. Many, many people have run a business and sold their businesses and made their entire retirement in 5 or 10 years. Now, am I saying that every business will be a retirement in 10 years? No. But you don't just have 10 years. Right? When I was in my 20s, I basically had 50 years ahead of me. Right? Maybe 25 more years of earning, and 25 years of retirement, or so. Now that I'm in my 50s, I basically have 50 years ahead of me. It's almost like I haven't spent those last 30 years because our life expectancy has gone from 75 to 105. I'm actually planning for longer than that, right? 120. Now, you may think it's irrational to plan for 120. But when I was young, when I was in my 20s, it was irrational to plan for 100. And now that's generally what I think many people can expect if they take care of themselves. So we have time. We have plenty of time. And furthermore, we're going to need to work in order to keep ourselves having a purpose, right? A purpose in life. If you retire and you're going to golf, or you're going to travel, or you're going to visit your family, or you're going to fish, or you're going to garden, or whatever, that's great for a couple of weeks. And then what are you going to do? What's going to get you out of bed in the morning? When my oldest brother retired from the Burlington Northern Railroad, I got a text from him maybe a year later. And his text said something like, "Do you ever wonder if it's all worth it?" Now, those are alarming words, right? Those are alarming words. So I called him up immediately. I said, "Larry, what's going on?" He said, the railroad retirement won't let me do anything without risking that retirement. It won't let me find another job. It won't let me start a business. There you have another risk of that retirement. If you get into some kind of union contract or some kind of legacy pension, they can have all kinds of restrictions that basically make you sit in your house and do nothing for the rest of your life. Now, people who do that, I often give them five years left to live. Sadly, It didn't quite take that many years for my brother. He passed away just a few years later. He lost his purpose. He had no reason to get out of bed, no reason to continue on. Man without purpose is a ship without a rudder, going around in circles. So you've got to work anyway, and you've got all these extra years that have been just put back in your bank by medical advancements and advanced knowledge in nutrition. There are plenty of advancements in the field of longevity, right? What can we do to make our lives better, healthier, and longer? So why the urgency to build up that 401k now when you're still young enough and have enough energy to put it to use, investing in yourself, investing in your own company, taking charge of your own destiny, making yourself more secure because you're not going to lay yourself off. And if you end up having employees, every dollar that they make, you're going to earn some portion of that. It's going to go to your account. It's going to help provide for your children's success in the future. So do retirement plans enrich our lives? They don't. They don't. But running a business can, and it will. Most importantly, do retirement plans give us spiritual fuel? What is it that having a purpose gives us? It gives us spiritual fuel, right? That flame that we have inside us that keeps us going in the darkest times. That's something you can't get working for a company and building up your retirement. So the long and short of it, right? The final conclusion is you're never going to find a better investment. You're never going to find a company to invest in. You're never going to find a real estate deal, anything like that. You're never going to find anything like that that will give you the kind of return that you'll get from investing in yourself.